Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSI DFS. I'm McKinley412, and in this video, we're going to be covering the 9-game main slate happening at night. However, down in the description below, I will try to get some notes in for the early slate. I think that starts at 12:30 Eastern time, and I'll try to get those notes in after I do some more research around 11. So come back before that early slate, check this description below. Should be some notes about, favorite pitchers, favorite stacks, maybe even some value plays in there. But for now, this video is going to be talking about that main slate. And it's a main slate where we're seeing some top stud pitchers up at the top and really not too much to like down at the bottom. I think especially in cash games, you're going to be doing the Scherzer Rodon route. And after that, I mean, yikes. But Scherzer, he's over 11K. Rodon, he's almost 11K. So you're going to need some value. I just pulled some guys that I think are going to be in solid matchups. They're going to be on offenses that have some high implied run totals. I kind of bat in the heart of the order there. So I think these are 5 fantastic value plays. Allow for Texas, Owen Miller, Listella, Crawford, and Wade. Obviously, you don't play all 5 of them. I'm just putting them in here for you guys, just kind of give you some reference to some value plays so that you can open up your lineups to get the Scherzer Rodon combination in there, especially for cash games. GPP, go wild, do what you want. So let's just go through the pitchers and we'll talk about the bats. I already kind of talked about some of the value plays that I'm interested in. Scherzer Rodon up at the top. I don't really need to talk too much more about that. Valdez, I think he's very interesting. He's 10.3K, which is pretty pricey, being a left-hander going up against the White Sox. We know about the White Sox having all those righty power bats, but at the same time, they just cannot seem to get it going for whatever reason it is. So Valdez, I think, is very intriguing. Maybe he's like a nice GPP pivot off of, Rodon or Scherzer. If he can get you 8, 9 strikeouts, which he certainly can, and shut down this White Sox lineup, which pretty much every pitcher has as of late, I think he is in a great spot, even being a left-hander going up against the White Sox. So Valdez is quite interesting to me, but I do have him ranked 3rd among these top-tier pitchers. Lauer and Gonsolin, I have Lauer a little bit above Gonsolin, mainly for like the 600 savings. I think both of them are just in really tough spots, going up against the Dodgers, going up against the Brewers, both in tough spots. Both, they're fine, solid pitchers. I don't think Gonsolin's worth 10K. He's got a great floor, but his strikeout rate is just not of a guy that I want to be paying 10K for here. You can see he's got strikeouts of 3, 4, 3, 5, 4, 5, 5. Just kind of as we go down, like, do I want to pay 10K for that, especially for a pitcher in a tough matchup here? Not really. So I do put Lauer a little bit above him, but all in all, do I have much interest in either of them? Not really too much. And so let's go into the mid-tier. Quantrill and Montgomery, those are the 2 guys that kind of really stand out, and really the only 2 guys in this mid-tier that I have, some interest in. Quantrill, obviously, we're targeting righties against Detroit, just with how bad Detroit has been throughout the season. I know Plesac, he just didn't kind of come through for us yesterday, but it's going to happen. I mean, Plesac's not the greatest pitcher. Quantrill's kind of in a similar boat. It's a righty. It's against Detroit. He's super cheap. Can he have a great game? For sure. Can he also struggle because he's not like an elite pitcher? Absolutely. But he's got 2 starts back-to-back where he allowed no earned runs, and that was against Houston and Toronto. So I'm expecting him to be able to shut down Detroit if he can shut down Houston and Toronto. So Quantrill's my favorite mid-tier value play. I guess he could even go cheap tier. He's 7K. But Montgomery's right below him. Remember, he's on St. Louis now, but he is facing off against Colorado, an offense that just, again, seems to be struggling. And much like Quantrill, he's got back-to-back starts with no earned runs against 2 tough teams, the Yankees and the Brewers, and now he's got Colorado a bit weaker. So Montgomery, he'd be my 2nd favorite guy there. Cory Kluber, he's going off against the Yankees, 8.8K. It's pricey for Kluber in general. I know we've kind of targeted him in the past at that price tag. We did it against Baltimore, but he's kind of showed some struggles here. 7 earned runs, 3, 4, 4, 4. Now he's got the Yankees, who I know are slumping, but it's still the Yankees. There is still some concern there, so it would be GPP at best, and even that, it's dicey. Below Kluber, Contreras, and Odorizzi. I'm more than likely not going to have either of these guys in my lineups, but if you are building 150 lineups, you could throw them in. Odorizzi doesn't have too much of a strikeout rate, and he's got a brutal matchup going up against the Mets. Contreras, he's fine. Going up against Boston. Boston, they got some injuries to their lineup. 3 of his past 4 starts, he's allowed 1 or fewer earned runs. It was against the Reds, the Rays, and the Cubs, so it's not like elite competition, but Boston has shown that they can certainly struggle. And, he can touch that almost a 100 pitch count mark. So he can go deep into games. He's at home. He's probably in a comfortable position. So I think he could be fine if you do build those 150 lineups. Kopech, I really don't have any interest in him here going up against Houston. I know he just had an amazing game against Detroit, but kind of seems to be the norm of righties going up against Detroit over the past month. But outside of that Detroit game, he's really been struggling over the past month, 2 months and change. So he's got a brutal matchup going up against Houston. He's faced them 1 time before. He allowed 2 home runs, 4 earned runs in just 5 innings pitched, and ERA over 7 if he extended that out. So not too interested in Kopech here. I think it's just a brutal matchup. I do have some interest in the Houston bats for sure tonight. And yeah, so diving into the cheap tier, and it's pretty sparse down here. I'm probably just going to be sticking up towards the top, or if I do go down below, it's probably just going to be going towards Quantrill. But down here, Herman, he just can't seem to get the strikeout rate going this season. I'm not sure exactly why or what's going on, but he just can't figure it out. But it goes against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay can strike out quite a bit as a team, so maybe this is the one where he can kind of get back into that 5, 6, 7 strikeout kind of game. But outside of that, 6.5K, it's a fine price tag, especially a guy going up against a weakened Tampa Bay lineup who can strike out quite a bit. So a little bit of interest in Herman, but not a whole lot. Marquez, kind of a similar, well, not really a similar deal. Marquez, he's got a tough matchup going against St. Louis, who does not strike out. But St. Louis, it's like an all-righty lineup. Marquez, he's a right-handed pitcher. So he's going to have that nice splits going against them. He just faced them last time out. He only allowed 2 earned runs and 6 innings pitched. And now he got a 900 salary decrease from that start. So he's getting out of Coors Field. I think that he can do okay in this matchup, but it's going to be one of those GPP at best, 150 max lineups probably in that spot. Reagan's just pitchers going up against Oakland. That's it. The pitcher is going up against Oakland, 5.4K. He's struggling in his 2 starts so far in the majors, but his minor league numbers actually aren't too bad. So maybe he's more of like a 6K, 6.5K guy in my mind. So I do think 5.4 is just a little bit too cheap for him, given the matchup, given what he can do and his skill set. But yeah, so fades. Don't want Kopech. Don't really want Aller at all, or Hill, or Norris, and even Davies. It's not like a fade against Davies. I just don't have any interest in it. All right, so let's turn towards the bats. I think the first thing I got to say is San Francisco Giants. They are ultra cheap, and these are the guys that are going to be able to open up the salary for your Scherzer and Rodon lineups, or Scherzer and Valdez, whatever you want to mix and match with the aces and the studs. But Lamonte Wade Jr. at 2.5K and Brandon Crawford at 2K. Those are my 2 favorite of the San Francisco bats that you could be going to. But Listella, he's got fine numbers as well, going up against righties. So 2.2K there. Brandon Bell, Yastrzemski. There's so many different lefties that are all very cheap. Jock Peterson, he's not very cheap, but still, they got so many guys that you could be going with in their lineup going up against Davies. Let me just see what all of their salaries actually are. Yeah, Jock Peterson, he's 4.3. But yeah, everybody else is just like 3.1 and lower. So San Francisco is really going to be able to open up the lineups for you. And yeah, so San Francisco, super cheap, openings up. Top tier, though. Teams that I do definitely want to be targeting for stacks. It's going to be Cleveland going up against Daniel Norris and Detroit. Again, I love these Cleveland bats. I love bats going up against Detroit and their weakened bullpen. And Norris, he certainly struggles at times. So Cleveland's got a lot of righties in their lineups, a couple switch hitters as well. Kwan and Jimenez, they are the 2 lefties, but still, I mean, if you want to go with those guys, they are both on a roll right now, hitting very well. But, you kind of start off with a Jose Ramirez if you're going to be going with that big Cleveland stack. However, I will say Ramirez has really struggled as of late. You can kind of see he's only got a couple of hits as we kind of go down here, and he really has, and they're just singles. It's not like he's hitting doubles, home runs, all that stuff. So he's in like a very big personal slump. Maybe he can get out of it. A nice matchup against Norris here, 5.6K. It's a little bit cheaper than we've seen him in quite some time. But Owen Miller, he's going to be your super cheap guy from Cleveland that I would have some serious interest in. You could put him at first base, you could put him at second base, but 3.1K, do not mind that at all. Another cheap guy that you could go is Oscar Gonzalez. He's hitting over 300 on the season, and it's limited data, but he's not going to be getting home runs for you. He doesn't have that kind of upside to him, but maybe he can get on the base path. What was that? He did have a stolen base in his last start out, so maybe you can get a stolen base for you. But Oscar Gonzalez, 3.5K. I think he's another value cheap play that you could be going with Cleveland. But I think Cleveland going up against Norris, going up against that Detroit bullpen, they're my favorite stack on the entire day. Second favorite stack is going to be Texas going up against Aller. Aller has just really, really struggled. He's just not a super great pitcher. Corey Seager is probably going to be a very popular play, which I think is really interesting because he fills that shortstop spot with Brandon Crawford. And Crawford, I think, could also be very popular. It's just kind of like, do you go uber cheap and like say that Brandon Crawford is your, cheap pump play, or are you going to pay up at shortstop and go that route and find your value in other positions? So I do think it's quite intriguing how that kind of all shook out. But Corey Seager, he's going to be your top option on this Texas stack for sure, hands down. Adolis Garcia, 4.2K. He's got some great numbers. He's been hitting the ball very well, as the way you can kind of see here. So do like Adolis Garcia. I mean, Jonah Heim, he's certainly fine. And they're just very affordable. And that's what I like about Texas going up against in a great matchup, going up against Aller. So Texas would be my second favorite stack. And I want to say that Texas actually has the highest implied run total on the entire slate. Now I'm kind of remembering back to my research. I think Texas actually has the highest implied run total. So Cleveland, Texas, those are your top two. Houston, I think, is really interesting going up against Kopech. Maybe people play Kopech a bit more just because of his last start against Detroit, and he sees some increased ownership. If that's the case, I'm going to be even heavier on Houston. Like if we see that, maybe there's just a lot of talk going around about Kopech and how he's a nice cheap play. He just shut down Detroit and everything. I'm going to be even higher on Houston. There we go. Alvarez, he's still pricey at 5.9K, but lefty righty matchups, absolutely love those there. Kyle Tucker, 4.5K. Just kind of going down through the lineup. I mean, Gurriel at 3.2K. He's always just been a nice, salary relief player in the middle of a great elite offense. So I don't mind him at all either. But St. Louis, Boston kind of rounding things out in that top tier. GPP, the Mets, going up against Odorizzi. Odorizzi's not like a slouch by any means, but the Mets are one of the best teams in the majors going up against right-handed pitching. And Odorizzi, he allows a lot of contact. He doesn't strike out many guys. He's got a low strikeout rate. And so this Mets lineup, it would not shock me if we can see them hitting that 6-7 run total. Wouldn't shock me at all, especially in that hot Atlanta heat. So Mets, it's your usual guys. It's going to be Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, Starlin Marte, and even some of the cheaper guys that you can fit in there. Don't mind them either. The Yankees going up against Kluber. I already mentioned Kluber's struggles over the past, handful of starts. But the Yankees have really, really been struggling offensively. So they are a GPP only at this point for me. But I mean, if you want to put them as a top GPP play, awesome. No complaints here just because of how much Kluber has struggled and the amount of talent that the Yankees lineup does have. They just need to kind of get it back. White Sox kind of rounding things out. I already mentioned Valdez. He's a left-handed pitcher. The White Sox do fantastic against them. However, not lately. And that's kind of like the GPP kind of part there. Tampa Bay Dodgers, just kind of some leftover teams that you can see here. But it's going to be a lot of Cleveland, going to be a lot of Texas, going to be a lot of San Francisco Giants, going to be a lot of Houston and St. Louis. I feel like those are kind of like the big five that I would be targeting here on this slate. Mets, if you want to get some one-offs in there, totally fine with that. They're just kind of really expensive, which is kind of why they're into that GPP route for me there. So that kind of covers everything. Again, this is not a core. This is just me, highlighting some value plays that you could be putting into your lineup to get those two stud pitchers into your lineup. And again, the early slate notes are going to be down in the description below. I'll try to get those in there before 11 a.m. So please come back to this video, check those out. And yeah, so as always, good luck in your contest. We got 2 nice slates today, 6-gamer and a 9-gamer. So as always, good luck in them. And we will see you guys in the next video.